If memory serves, it's the first one that I read that definitely left a mark. It's not the first one I read. She targets men's who are bait men's. But then but then one of the people in the group is found murdered. We are following, again, another group of friends in college. So she's an English professor. I can't say that word, professor. How many times have I filmed a video where I mess up the word professor? D. So this book takes place at Cambridge. I keep saying Oxford, it's Cambridge. Dang it. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse and welcome to Dark Academia. If I seem super giddy, it's because I totally am. If you guys know me, you know this is by far one of my most favorite tropes, go-tos, storytelling, themes, whatever we want to call it. And you know that I do not limit my Dark Academia to a certain time of year, but since we are entering fall, school is back in session, I know a lot of people tend to gravitate towards Dark Academia at this time of year, so I thought I would come to you guys with a couple of different videos. So I'm gonna do a video about all the Dark Academia books that I have read and loved, and then I'm gonna do a totally separate video, about a whole bunch of Dark Academia books that I want to read, some of which I have, some of which I have my eye on. The research situation was real in this one. I have more books than I could even begin to talk about, but we're just gonna begin. I know a lot of you guys had mentioned you don't mind the longer videos, so I'm very grateful for that because I have a sneaking suspicion this is gonna be another one. So grab a drink, hunker down, let's talk Dark Academia. So we're gonna start with what I consider the ultimate Dark Academia book, and I feel like this will surprise no one when I say it's The Secret History by Donna Tartt. So this is a thrifted hardcover. It has a vellum cover, which I'm gonna remove because lights and all sorts of other things. So if you guys have been here, you know my love for The Secret History, including my original mass market paperback, which I will not get rid of, even though poor thing is literally fallen apart. But I got this in college, and I would say I consider this one of the most game-changing books I've ever read in my life, partially because I'm just obsessed with the story, and I was always a reader. I always read for pleasure, and when I got to college, I feel like so much more was opened up to me in so many different ways, and it should probably surprise nobody to find out that I used to spend a lot of my time browsing bookstores when I was in Boston, including our college bookstore, which was absolutely amazing. It was called the BU Bookstore Mall, just to give you guys a sense of how big this thing was. But I found my paperback of The Secret History, which I'm not gonna hold up because it's literally in pieces, and every time I hold it up, I drop it. So I read it and I just felt just such a shift in how books are written and things that I was reading. I think because it was set during college, I was in college, and when I read it, I found such a connection to so much of it, and it just blew my mind in so many ways, and I just love this book. So I have read it multiple times, and I'm gonna read it again this year because if you guys haven't heard, September marks the 30th anniversary of The Secret History. And if you're wondering if I bought a commemorative 30th anniversary edition of the book from Book Depository, you would be correct. So it comes out on September 22nd. I will link to Book Depository down below. It's not sponsored or there's no commission or anything like that, but in case anybody else is interested. But I'm obsessed with this book. So Donna Tartt, The Secret History. In case you don't know about this book follows a group of students at a prestigious college in Vermont. And Richard is our entryway into this group. He is a scholarship student, he is the outsider, and he becomes completely mesmerized by these 5 students who are part of this very elite circle. And they are rich and they are privileged and they think quite highly of themselves. And he is just fascinated by them and kind of is pulled into their web. So in the first line of this book, we find out that Bunny is dead, and we find out that this group of friends killed him. And the line literally says, "We hadn't intended to hide the body where it couldn't be found. In fact, we hadn't hidden it at all, but had simply left it where it fell in hopes that some luckless passerby would stumble over it before anyone even noticed he was missing." So this book goes back in time to find out who the circle of friends is, who Bunny is, how we got to this point. and I just absolutely loved it. And it definitely, in a very different way, but gives me How to Get Away with Murder vibes in some element. And I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed with this book, as you guys can probably tell. So long story short, if you haven't read it, I feel like this is where your journey should either begin in Dark Academia or take you to next, because it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, from here on out, these books are in absolutely no particular order, but I love them all. So next up, I have They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This is a book that I purchased because I had heard great things about it, and I subsequently put it on my shelf. And when I picked it up, I was like, why did I put this away? Why didn't I read this sooner? This is female serial killer on a college campus, and it is our professor, Scarlett, let me get her name right, Scarlett Clark. So she's an English professor, and every year she targets men who are basically hot garbage, and she kills them. And this year she is targeting a man. She is aiming to kill him, and something happens where she risks revealing herself as kind of this campus killer, serial killer. Oh, Scarlett is so amazing. I absolutely loved this book. We also get a second POV from a girl named Carly, who is a freshman at Gorman, and she is kind of on her own revenge track because her roommate, who is just the cool girl and she's just the best of friends with her, they're at a party and her roommate winds up getting assaulted by someone, and Carly is determined to make that guy pay. So we've got multiple POVs, got a whole lot going on. This is just absolutely brilliant. I was obsessed with this book and I love it. Female serial killers, so good. We need more of this. Next up is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So this one starts off with Victor and Eli meeting at college. And it says they are brilliant, arrogant, lonely boys who recognize the same sharpness and ambition in each other. So kind of in a Flatliners kind of a way, they discover that if you have a near-death experience, you can obtain extraordinary powers. So they are on a mission to create a near-death experience for themselves so that they can come back with these exceptional powers. And as you can guess, things do not always go according to plan. So this was the first V.E. Schwab book that I read, and I loved it so much more than I expected. I was hesitant to go into this because it's not my usual genre, and I read this a few years ago. If you guys saw my book haul, you would know that I went on a bit of a kick and picked up Vicious and Vengeful, the sequel, in these collector's editions because I have issues. But I just absolutely loved the writing of this. It definitely made me fall in love with V.E. Schwab as a writer, and I feel like it definitely opened up, like for me, sci-fi fantasy is definitely out of my usual comfort zone, but it opened up a window into it where these characters were amazing, the writing and the storytelling was absolutely amazing, and I feel like I used to not pick up certain books because I was very much like, oh, I don't read that genre, and would write things off without giving them a chance. But I read this and it felt like such a great doorway into a genre and understanding that there are books out there that I can connect with, even if it's not usually in my zone, if you will. But this obviously does have some dark and messed up things happening in it, which I absolutely love. And I read it every time, but there's this great quote at the beginning of the book, and it's by Joseph Brodsky, and it says, "Life, the way it really is a battle not between bad and good, but between bad and worse." So it's absolutely brilliant. Can't recommend it enough. The next book I have is one I talked about a bunch when I first started my channel, but I feel like I haven't talked about enough lately, and also, shocker, want to reread it now, of course, and it's All These Beautiful Strangers by Elizabeth Clayfoth. So when I first saw this book, I knew it was secret society at a college. I was totally hooked on it, and was really surprised when I started to read it to realize we get multiple timelines, we get multiple POVs in this book, and there's so much more to it than just the secret society, even though that part is just golden. And I loved it so much. I did a whole dedicated video on this, which I haven't rewatched in forever, but that's how obsessed I was after I read this book. So in this book, we are following a girl named Charlie Calloway, and she was definitely one of my favorite characters that I had read in a really long time. And again, why I want to revisit this book is because I feel like I just loved her so much. So it says, she appears to have a life most people would kill for. A wealthy family, loyal friends, top grades at an elite boarding school. So she winds up getting tapped for this secret society, and this invitation shows up, and she's determined to get in no matter the cost. And it says, but the secrets they keep are deeper and more dangerous than Charlie could ever have imagined, and implicate her family in not just one terrible crime, but two. They could destroy her or give her the answer she's always craved, who or what was behind her mother's disappearance 10 years ago. So we get, like I said, these multiple timelines. So we get Charlie in the present tense, but then we also go back 10 years. So her mother disappeared, walked out of their lives, never found out what happened to her, never found any leads on her. This has always been an open question. And then we have a timeline previous to that about when her parents met and about their families. And it was woven together so well. I was really surprised by really the timeline where her parents meet and their backstory, which I found really interesting. And I just thought the writing was great, and I was completely hooked by this story. Like, I compulsively read it, and I don't feel like anybody talks about it, and what an underrated book. So if you guys are looking for kind of that secret society college itch, but also don't want a straight YA book, this is definitely one for you. This is secrets and lies and family stories. And again, Charlie is such a tremendous main character. I just loved it so much. The next book I have, I feel like, is polarizing, but I enjoyed it, is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. So he wrote The Silent Patient, which is what launched him kind of into the stratosphere. And this is a little bit of a crossover book that takes place in the same universe. So you don't necessarily need to have read The Silent Patient to read this. I mean, you don't have to have read The Silent Patient to read this, but there are characters from that book that appear in this book. And if you have read The Silent Patient, I feel like it's that extra Easter egg where you're like, ooh, interesting. But this stands on its own 2 feet, if you will. So this book takes place at Cambridge. We get another secret society vibe to this, and we are following a woman named Mariana, who is a group therapist, and she winds up coming to Cambridge because her niece Zoe is there, and one of the girls who was in this secret society, which I feel like it's not totally secret, but it's known as the Maidens, is found dead. And the first line of this is, Edward Fosca is a murderer. Of this, Mariana is certain. So he is the handsome and charismatic Greek tragedy professor. He is also the man behind the Maidens and well liked by the students, lots of mystery around him. And Mariana is convinced that he is connected to what's happening to these girls and what's happening on Cambridge's campus. So there's a lot of backstory to this. Mariana's got a lot of baggage, of course she does. And she takes it upon herself to come up here and figure out what's going on, and also to protect her niece. So there were elements of this book where I wanted more of the Maidens, I will say. Like, I wanted more of them and that side of things, but we really get a lot of just Mariana and her investigation. So Mariana was also a student at Cambridge. She's very familiar with the happenings up there, and kind of as more murders start to happen, she becomes more and more fixated on this professor, and you just kind of hunker down for the ride. So again, I had fun with this. I thought the atmosphere was really good, and definitely just an enjoyable read. I also very much enjoy his writing, so I'm excited to see what he does next, but this is his Dark Academia. Another book which I loved to pieces is The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. This is definitely on the dark and messed up friendship side of things. We get past and present timelines, we have a college reunion, and this to me is very reflective of how horrible girls can be to each other. So obviously there's a wink and a nod to The Girls Are Also Nice Here, and I just thought this book was so well done. This is the first book I've read by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn, and I want to say this is her adult debut, and I just thought it was perfect. So you guys know I started writing notes in the front of my books and the dates that I read it. I read this at the end of 2021, and I wrote so many sharp lines: pitch perfect, wit, dark, evil, jealousy, competition, envy. So in this book, our main character, Ambrosia, gets an invitation to her 10-year college reunion, and she also gets a note in the mail anonymously that says, we need to talk about what we did that night. And freshman year, Ambrosia, who goes by Am, and her best friend, Sully, did something. And they go to the reunion, and the stakes continue to raise, and it becomes very clear that someone is looking for more than just the truth of what happened that night, but they are looking for revenge. So we get past and present timelines in this. Again, I feel like, as I said, a pitch perfect depiction of the darkness of female friendship, and I thought this was so well done. I dog-eared this one to pieces and I was obsessed. Amazing. Next up is a book that I read this year, and this is Tell Me Everything by Cambria Brockman. So this is another one of those books that I bought, put it on my shelf. I hate to say I forgot about it, but I forgot about it, and I picked it up this year, and I just was like, why did I leave this on my shelf? This is one of those books where, man, was I thinking about this so much after the fact. And I had in my head, so I read this after I reread In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which you guys will see later, and I thought it was going to be similar to that, and it wasn't, which was great. But I feel like I was going into it expecting it to be one thing and it wound up being something else, and I wasn't at all mad about that fact. So what's it all about? This is about a group of friends at an elite New England college called Hawthorne College. And when the book opens, we have this co-ed group of friends who are doing this ritual, which I guess is actually a thing, because when I reviewed this book, you guys commented on it for senior day. And it takes place in January 2011, and they all jump into the cold river, and they're in Maine, I wanna say. So that's freezing. And it's basically like on senior day, when the day starts, they're all together, and by the end, they won't all still be alive. So we get past and present timelines, we get senior day, a little bit hour by hour about what's happening, and then we go all the way back to freshman year when they first meet. So kind of reminiscent to In My Dreams in that sense, and we get to see how the group of friends became friends and the dynamics between them and the complicated relationships, and pieces are starting to come together in the past and the present. And we don't know, obviously, who is missing from the group, but as the story progresses, certain clues start to get dropped. I had so many different theories. I never in a million years guessed how this one was ending, and I really, really enjoyed it. So Malin is such an interesting character, and again, I feel like there were so many elements of this book that were very spot on to the college experience. And when I say these things, just, I mean, I wasn't like a horrible person or anything, but I just feel like the dynamics of being strangers, everyone looking for new friends, sort of how you cling to each other, how those relationships form, especially freshman year, and sort of that instant friendship that you have, and how quickly these friendships evolve because you were literally together 24/7. It's just so interesting, and I really enjoyed the co-ed nature of this friendship and the different dynamics between the group. Like I said, these characters were really interesting, and we are seeing so much from Malin's point of view, and she is just such an interesting character. And like I said, I thought it was going to be one thing, it wound up being something totally different, and I enjoyed it. So I would say a little bit more slow burn of a thriller. It's not this fast paced that things are happening, but there's so much going on. I also dog-eared this one incredibly highly, a lot, much. And I thought it was just so, so good. I was really fascinated by this book and kind of kicking myself for taking so long, but I also feel like a book finds you when it's supposed to find you. So if you're looking for maybe an underhyped Dark Academia, this would be a great one to give a go to. Okay, here's a hyped Dark Academia book that I think is worth the hype, and it's If We Were Villains by ML Rio. You like what I did there? It's just fast. I loved this. So I feel like after The Secret History, so many books were for fans of The Secret History, just like The Secret History, you know, like the next Secret History. It's kind of like the next Gone Girl. And I fed into a lot of that, which is the reason why I pick up a lot of books, and it doesn't always come through. But I feel like this is very much compared to The Secret History, and I thought this book was so well done. My recommendation is to get the audiobook of this. I did a combo of it, and here's why. So in this one, again, we are following another co-ed group of friends in college. We are getting past and present timelines, and these 7 friends are part of a Shakespearean acting group at this elite conservatory. So I feel like it's kind of, if fame was a college, it's what that kind of a college is. And the book is interwoven with plays from Shakespeare. So you get Macbeth, you get Julius Caesar. We are seeing the characters act out the plays, and I don't do great with reading Shakespeare, but having, I want to say maybe they did Othello also, the audiobook and having it played out that way. Shakespeare is such an integral part of this book, and not in the sense that you need to, I'm sure if I knew the plays better, certain things would maybe have more meaning to me in a lot of ways, but they are acting out the plays in the book. Like I said, we follow them along with it. And listening to the audiobook of it was really, really well done. And the book itself is broken into like Act 1, Act 2. So what I wound up doing was mostly physically reading the non-Shakespeare parts and then listening to the Shakespeare part of the books. And for me, it made for a really good reading experience. But again, whatever works for you. So when this book opens, we are meeting Oliver Marks, and he has just served 10 years in prison for the murder of one of his closest friends. And it says a murder he may or may not have committed. On the day he's released, he's greeted by the detective who put him in prison. Detective Colborne is retiring, but before he does, he wants to know what really happened 10 years ago. So in the present day, we are getting Oliver and the detective talking through what actually happened, and then we are going backwards in time to see leading up to the murder. So we don't know who's dead right away. We just know that Oliver is the one who served time for it. And I just thought it was really, really clever. I really enjoyed this book so much. This is definitely another one that I plan to reread. So ML Rio herself holds an MA in Shakespeare Studies from King's College London and Shakespeare's Globe. So you can understand the deep dive she goes into Shakespeare, and you can really see her love of it. And obviously she had a group of friends, which this is not based on, but her experience, and you can see how it really influenced this book. But I really thought it was well done. I will not pick a favorite between this and Secret History. I think it's apples and oranges for me, but you get that same dark feeling and vibe. But I love this so much. I really, really loved this book. Next up is Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell. So I read this one last year or this year? Last year, okay, had to check. And in this one we have, after years of struggling to write following the deaths of his wife and son, English professor Connor Nye publishes his first novel, a thriller about the murder of a young woman. There's just one problem. Connor didn't write this book. His missing student did. And then she appears on his doorstep, alive and well, threatening to expose him. So Connor was reviewing this manuscript that one of his students wrote, and then she went missing, and he decided to take it as his own. And when the book opens, he is basically at a book launch event for it, goes home, and then the missing student, who no one ever knew what happened to her, no one ever knew where she went to, is alive and well and at his house. And she's like, knock, 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 I know what you did. So this becomes secrets and lies, and how does one get out of this, you wonder? You have to read it and find out. So I know the plot has some similar feels to this. I haven't read the plot yet. That's gonna be on my book I have, but I haven't read yet, Dark Academia video that I do. But I very much enjoyed this book. I thought it was well done, it was fast paced. There was a lot going on here. We had some interesting characters. I just love the conniving, devious ways of people, and sort of how low will you go stealing somebody else's work and plagiarizing it. I mean, can you really, Connor? Can you really? And he does. So did I say past and present timelines? Past and present timelines, just very well done. This is my first David Bell book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next up, we have The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. So I'm a massive Ruth Ware fan. I have read all of her books except for The It Girl, which will be on my Dark Academia, I haven't read it yet video. And I just love her. I just love what she does. And this book is, I want to say this is her third book. And this follows 4 friends who were the best of friends at Salton, which was a second-rate boarding school set near the cliffs of the English Channel. And one morning in the present day, they get a text message, and it's the text message that they've all feared from Kate. And it says, I need you. So the 3 other women drop everything that they're doing. They go to Kate's house, and they need to deal with something they did back when they were at boarding school together. So in this one, it says the rules are simple. Tell a lie, stick to your story, and never ever get caught. So we get multiple timelines in this one as well. Secrets in the past, secrets in the present. And I enjoyed this book. So like I said, I'm a big fan of Ruth Ware, and I always enjoy her writing. I enjoy her characters. This was a very easy kind of quick read for me. And you get those boarding school vibes, and then you also get the present tense and grappling with what they did. And like I said, covering up secrets and telling lies and what happened. And I just had a great time with it. So if you've already read The It Girl and are itching for some more, here's an option. And we'll talk about The It Girl in the next video. Another book that I read this year is The Reunion by Guillermo Musso. And I tabbed this one up to all sorts of high heavens. This is another book that just totally took me by surprise. And I thought it was just so well done. I just keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I really enjoyed this. So in this one, we had an elite prep school, and then we have the reunion in the present day. So we also get the past and present timelines in this one. This one is set in the French Riviera, and we have 3 friends linked by a tragic secret, one girl taken by the night. So we have 19-year-old Vinca Rockwell, who was the most beautiful and glamorous girl at the prep school. She runs away with her philosophy teacher, with whom she's been conducting a secret affair, and she will never be seen from again. So in the present day, they are back at this college reunion, this group of friends, and it says they know they must go back one more time because there's a body buried in the gym's wall, and they're the ones who put it there. I love the premise of this. So what really happened back then? What are they going to do now? Because the gym is about to go under construction, so they can't risk having this body be found. And this is short. This was a quick compulsive read. This is the first but not the last of his books that I'm going to read, and I just had such a great time with this one. So another book that I really don't feel like I hear anybody talking about, but thought it was brilliant. Thought it was brilliant. And my modern classic of the Dark Academia genre is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. So you guys know I'm obsessed with her. I've read this book twice now. I physically read it last year. I did the audiobook of it this year. And I just think it was so well done. And again, I feel like she really captures perfectly the challenges and the dynamics between friend groups, between female friendships. I feel like she nails the envy and the jealousy and this feeling of who you are in the past and sort of how everyone kind of has their place in the group, and then in the present day trying to break out of that mold, how people fall back into their old habits and their old routines when you're back together with your group, secrets, lies, just all the dark and messed up things, and I loved it. So in this one, I'm like shaking the book, I'm so excited. In this book, we are following Jessica, and she is coming back for her college reunion, and she has always felt less than. She's always felt one step behind, and she is coming back to prove to everybody that she has made it, that she has done it, that she is top of her game, top of the world, that she is now the it girl. And safe to say, things don't totally go according to plan when she gets to her reunion at Duquesne University. So it's 6 friends, 1 college reunion, and 1 unsolved murder. So this group of friends have been the best of friends since freshman year when they met, and their senior year, one of the girls in the group, Heather, was brutally murdered, and one of the other friends in the group was accused of the crime, but there was never enough evidence to convict, so nobody was ever charged with the crime, nobody was ever discovered as the murderer, so this has remained open and unsolved. And back at the college reunion, kind of like The Girls Are Also Nice here, somebody is looking for the truth of that night and somebody is looking for some revenge. So I loved, like I said, everything about this book. I think Ashley Winstead is such an incredible talent. Her writing is so spot on. I just feel like she can turn a phrase, she can tell a story, she can twist and turn you. And she really, I think, captures again so much of that college experience so well. And there were so many points of relatability that I had with this book, minus the murder part. But I just thought it was so well done, and it really felt like a behind the curtain look at the dynamics in the friend group, like I said, the sorority life, the competition, all of it. And I just, again, just brilliant, amazing, all the things. Highly recommend it. Read it, listen to it, whatever works for you. Do not miss this book. 2 YA series that I wanted to mention. So Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This was originally conceived as a trilogy. There are 4 books now. There's going to be a 5th book, but the original mystery takes place over the first 3 books. You get sort of mysteries solved and reopened and more mysteries added to it, but that one follows a student named Stevie Bell. She is accepted to the prestigious Ellingham Academy in Vermont, and she is a true crime aficionado. She is an Agatha Christie obsessed girl, and there is a crime that took place at Ellingham back in the 30s, I want to say. So the headmaster's wife and daughter were kidnapped and murdered, and a ransom note came from somebody signed Truly Devious. And it was never really determined who was behind what happened to them. So Stevie is on a mission to solve the Truly Devious mystery. And along the way, we get some hijinks in the present day. We get some people who are maybe not too jazzed about her looking into things. We have a great group of friends that she meets, and just, it was really well done. So I really enjoyed Stevie as a character. She's layered, she's complicated, she has a lot going on, and it really surprised me how much I enjoyed this book. So I devoured all 3 of those books. I did read the 4th book, which is Stevie kind of on a summer vacation. And then the 5th book is coming out, I want to say in December, and that is Stevie going to London, kind of semester abroad, or I think like a holiday vacation over there. And of course, there's going to be some sort of mystery to solve, but really enjoyed the series, highly recommend it. And then the second series is A Study in Charlotte, and this is by Brittany Cavallaro. And this follows, I want to say it's like the great-great-great-grandchildren of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. So it is Jamie Watson and Charlotte Holmes, and they are at a prep school in Connecticut, and murder happens, and they wind up banding together to solve what happened. But again, this is definitely dark YA, edgy YA, and I was, again, just blown away by it and surprised by it. There are so many layers to this, so many complications to this. I think Charlotte was such a well-drawn character. I really enjoyed the dynamic of her and Jamie. And this is another one that there's 4 books in this series. You could certainly read one and be done, but I would challenge you to be able to put it down after you read the first book. But again, I had such a fun time with it and really just appreciated the layers and the mystery, and that there were no cookie cutters, and she wasn't, like, Charlotte wasn't a one-trick pony, and she was messy sometimes, and there were mistakes that were made, and there were consequences to actions, but I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking to go the YA path, Truly Devious and the Sherlock Holmes, Jamie Watson series are definitely great ways to go. Another prep school book, but more targeted towards an adult audience, is Good Girls Lie by J.T. Ellison. So I read this a few years ago, and this is another one of those books where on page 1 you know that somebody is dead, but you don't know who and you don't know what happened. So you wind up going backwards in time and you get some current day. So this is a boarding school, and it says it's the choice for daughters of the rich and the influential, and it only accepts the best and the brightest. So of course, we enter the scholarship student who comes. She is a stranger to everyone. All of these girls have grown up together. They've known each other their entire lives. They've been in the school system together. So when our mysterious stranger enters the scene, obviously we get some dubious behavior. We get some bad things happening here. We've got secret societies going on, secrets, lies, all the things. And then we are also following the headmaster of the school. She has inherited this job from her mother. There's a lot of community pressure that is going on here. There's a lot of personal pressure from a family standpoint. And they're also trying to protect the reputation of the school because, as we know again on page 1, somebody doesn't make it. So there's a lot to take care of after the fact. So you get some police investigation, and then you get the dynamics between the girls, between the adults. So I enjoyed it. I want to say it was like my second J.T. Ellison book maybe that I read, but very well done. I'm definitely a fan of hers. The next book I have is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And this is definitely a difficult book to read. So I read this when it first-ish came out, and I wound up doing the audiobook of this, which I very much enjoyed, but this was a hard book to read. This was a heavy book to read. And this follows a girl named Vanessa and the relationship that she had when she was a teenager with her English professor, which completely inappropriate. And it is her reckoning with what happened in the past in the present day. So we meet her in the present day and she is reckoning with what happened in the past, but we get the dual timelines because in the present day, this professor of hers, Jacob Strain, has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student. And he is turning to Vanessa for help. The former student is reaching out to Vanessa for corroboration. And Vanessa, as I say, is forced to take a look back at what happened because in her mind, she had this loving, consensual, completely appropriate relationship with this teacher. And as more allegations are coming out and more conversations are happening, she's having to look back and take a completely different stance on this relationship that she had with him and wonder if her memory sort of has it all wrong, so to speak. And this was, as I say, really, really difficult content, really, really difficult to read. It was painstaking, it was painful, it was heartbreaking, and I think very much that the audiobook added just such a different layer, and I mean, I say this not having read the physical book, but added such a different layer to Vanessa as her voice, as she is sort of her voice in the past and the excitement that she felt by being seen by this teacher and by getting the attention from this teacher versus her in the present where she's definitely broken. She's definitely struggling, and the pain that's in her voice and the pain as she's looking back on things. So definitely not, as I say, for everyone, but if you are interested in this or had a curiosity about this book, it's really well done. It's definitely thought-provoking. It's definitely a conversation starter in so many different ways, and I just thought it was very well done. So heavy, but highly recommend. I just realized I forgot to pull the book off my shelf. Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian. Oh, I talked about the serial killer book before. This is like the psychopath book that you need to read. This book is so great. So in this one, we are following a girl named Chloe. So she is there's a giant plane going by. So in this book, we are following a girl named Chloe. I listened to the audiobook of this and I was obsessed with it. And I was obsessed with Chloe as a character. So she is one of 7 students at this DC-based college who are part of this secret clinical study of psychopaths. Students like herself who lack empathy and can't comprehend emotions like fear or guilt. So this is a secret study. They obviously don't want people to know that they have psychopaths on campus that they are currently studying. And no one is supposed to know who they are. They're not supposed to intermingle with anyone else in the group. Everybody is kept separate. But then one of the people in the study is murdered, and it becomes a question of, is somebody targeting the study? Was this just a random act of violence that happened on campus? Who's behind it? What's happening here? And then sort of the added amazing layer to this, Chloe herself as a character. So she's all, yeah, whatever with the study, because you get to go to school for free. It doesn't even matter to me. But her true motivation of going to this school and accepting her part in this study is because she wants to find her childhood friend Will, and she's coming to the school so she can kill him. So she's on a murder mission of her own, and then somebody in their group gets murdered and all sorts of chaos ensues. So there's so many dark, funny moments in this. Like the humor is so on point, but we get the dark messed upness of it all, obviously, because we've got psychopaths on campus and people getting murdered. And I loved the characters in this book. There's another character called Charlie who I just love so much. And the dynamic between Chloe and Charlie, I think, is just everything. I'm just absolutely obsessed with this book. And this is Vera Kurian's debut, which again, I can't even, just so amazingly well done. And one of the things I very much enjoyed about interviews with her talking about how she created the story, is she said, well, obviously she wants, you know, people to be guessing about what happened, or like the whodunit or the what happened. She's not trying to create such an intricate plot and twist and mystery. Like for her, it's not about the twist. She's not trying to pull the rug out from underneath you. And she's like, if people figure it out along the way, that's fine. I want them to be invested in the character and in the story and to stay with it. I'm not trying to make this story be so convoluted that you can't figure it out, but hopefully I've tricked you enough that you won't quite figure it out. But she is so driven by character, and I think she just did an amazing job with the characters in this book. So highly recommend, so well done. And again, if you like some dark and messed up humor in your books, this is a great one for you. So that's gonna do it for all the Dark Academia books that I have read, and I think you guys should be reading too. So let me know which books you have read, want to read, what are your Dark Academia recommendations for everybody here, and hopefully we can all get some new ideas and new books to add to our TBR. But let me know if you're going to be reading any Dark Academia this season. I can't wait till you guys see the list of all the ones I want to read. It's insane, and I want to read all of them, and I'm looking at them because they're all just beyond the camera. So stay tuned for that one, and until then, take care. I hope everyone's doing really well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the conversation, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody.